That's one thing that I've heard people are doing recently. A lot of people I've heard don't want to go back to the office. I think it's about also making sure that you can track individuals and their productivity.
Today, I've got Tamara Thompson with me. She's a dynamic host of Broadcast Your Authority TV. Now, as an award-winning director and video marketer, she's invested in over 25 companies. She is the founder and CEO of Broadcast Your Authority. It's really cool because her agency specializes in trying to craft micro content sourced from podcasts that are happening regularly. And they strategically try to position these companies with influencers and experts and respected industry leaders so that they can maximize the reach of what a company is hoping to do with the content that they're already producing. Truly, incredible stuff. Now, she began with video marketing back in 2013 when she founded Serious Take Productions. Now, what's really interesting about her story is that she sold out prestigious film festivals and she actually started to achieve some viral fame on YouTube. This caught the attention of IndieFlix, which acquired her films for distribution. Absolutely incredible. What an crazy story. Excited to hear more about it. Welcome to the show. Excited to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
Now, you've had this incredible journey. You graduated from film school. You've obviously understand, we're joking a little bit about camera technology here before we hit the starting of the record button. And what's interesting is some of that early success led you to be able to build a business, the one that you're running today. And you've gone through some iterations of that. Obviously, it's really focusing on kind of this independent film track and then transitioning over the years into really serving clients on a more regular recurring basis rather than creating new content, more so on helping people with their existing content. There's a weird scenario to make that genesis transpire. And I'm kind of curious, what was it that led you down the track of saying, hey, I'm really good at this. Obviously, we seem to be knocking this out of the park. Maybe I should just start doing that for other people.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It actually started back in my late 20s. I started paying more attention to YouTube and paying attention to the algorithms, like, oh, this content was taken off. Like, what are they doing? And so I went back to film school. And I was actually in the fitness industry for about 8 years. And I went back to school. And it was funny because my fitness director literally was going around the gym, basically telling everyone at the time, like, hey, this is Tamara, like camera, but not spelt like it. So I was like, oh, I guess my mom picked a great name, Tamara. And so I was like, I guess I was meant to go down this realm with like cameras and things like that. And I was intrigued with YouTube and started watching some of my friends and colleagues take off. And this was quite a while ago. And what happened though was, so I did go back to film school because people were like, well, if you're not happy in your career, why don't you do something with filmmaking? And it took me about 4 years before I actually was convinced by friends and colleagues, like, hey, I can actually go back to college in my late 20s and build a career of something. So I went back to film school. Everyone there was doing like 48-hour film festivals, and I was taking it more seriously because I was no longer a teenager and I wanted to build a successful portfolio. And so I started getting the mentorship from some of the instructors there, and some of them actually became famous directors. And so they put a challenge on me and they said, hey, I would like you to take on every single role to direct a documentary and submit it into Sundance Film Festival. And I was like, oh, I love a challenge. Let's go. So I went through all the roles. And then I directed this documentary, submitted it into the film festival, literally uploaded it into their Dropbox by 11:59 p.m., which was due at midnight. And I was like, boom, but I did it, right? I went through, I followed through, I did it. I was not accepted into that Sundance Film Festival for that film, but that was okay because what evolved from that story was the fact that we turned around and started directing films. So I graduated film school, started a production company in Seattle, Washington that focused on telling stories from the same system that we utilize now. So micro content from short form content, which of course back then we called teaser videos or trailers, right? That led to the long form content. Back then it was documentaries for us in our actual production company. But we knew we wanted to scale more and work with more people. So we're like, well, we don't want to just direct documentaries and do one-off projects. So later on in life, it evolved into what kind of content that's long form is consumed more frequently so that we understood YouTube's, obviously a marathon, not a sprint. And they're like, oh, well, how is YouTube going to suggest the content? So we got really good at directing these builds and these teasers, and the content took off. So one of the films, actually the one that I submitted to Sundance, that was like, we don't accept this. Basically, we did a teaser video. We uploaded the teaser video, didn't know what we were doing. Literally, in 10 days, we checked it. We're like, it has 888,000 views in a matter of 10 days. And so that was what was unique and inspired me and everybody that I was working with. I said, okay, we have to figure out what we did here. What is it that is it the content? Is it the keywords? Is it, what does this look like? So we started testing it for all these teasers and trailer videos to link them back to these documentaries. And then a lot of them took off and went viral starting back in like 2012. And when they started taking off and going viral, all of a sudden we got in front of indie flicks and they were like, we love what you're doing. We love this concept that you're doing with YouTube. We were like, we want to just acquire your films, basically. So we're like, okay, let's do it. Like, so we're grateful for that opportunity for them to acquire multiple documentary films. But then it's still at the same time, we were like, well, we still, at that point, we're like, how can we do more, right? But that also launched my speaking career, basically, on that side, being asked to go speak first at like film festivals and things like that, and then colleges and filmmaking schools in the beginning. And then I jumped into entrepreneurship more so that way and started going to entrepreneurial events, and of course, went down the line, you invest in your first mastermind and things like that. So I did that in 2014. And then we launched basically Broadcast Your Authority as an event space later on that led into our content marketing system for podcasts. But it all started from this model that we still utilize today, of course, paying attention to the data and switching up the algorithms and switching up the content direction and things like that. But it all just evolved from that viral video. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, to have the awareness and the observation to say, okay, something really worked, and just let's assess what worked and see if we can duplicate it and test. And so there's a sequence of events that happens there for you to start to say, okay, do we do this at randomly, or can we replicate essentially what's been created? And being able to do that through both a look back and then a projection forward into what you want to create is pretty fascinating. Now, moving forward, you mentioned investing in a mastermind, looking at getting coaching, being around more high performing entrepreneurs, so you could see how you could grow and scale. And so, what you mentioned about before we kind of hit record, that it was through a mastermind and through a good mentor that you were able to make a pivot in your business. And you kind of talked a little bit about how COVID came up for everybody, but it hit for you guys in your business a little differently.
Yeah, so there was two scenarios that played a part into our journey with masterminds. So one of them, our very first mastermind that we came into, we had a similar consistent offer that came into play, which allowed us to come into more high subscription models. And what was unique about it was this was the first time that we'd actually stepped in a mastermind. We're like, okay, we're building our network, right? And so when we came into it, we had kind of like a basic offer that was a little bit smaller, but a lot of value because we had the production company background and things like that, and the marketing and the storytelling. And so we started off with basically a 90-day offer before we went into the podcasting piece, which was more of like the content marketing piece. And so we turned around and offered basically a flat like $2,500 for a 90-day program just as a test, right? And then it was interesting because it was literally, we went into the mastermind and generated our first $85,000 in the first month. So we're like, okay, that was interesting. It wasn't quite six figures, but as an entrepreneur, when you're coming in on that side, it was an exciting point because we didn't know how to leverage connections and communities at that point. Fast forward, that was like our first mastermind way back in the day. On that side, fast forward, leveraged other communities, masterminds, high level masterminds. We hosted events for a while, starting in 2017. Then it came into 2018, and this was, before COVID hit and things like that. And we invested in this high level mastermind. We came into the space understanding that we wanted to do more than just have a production company that could do, these packages that were fairly customized, right? Like in order to scale, you really have to have very specific systems in place. And this is what I learned over the years. Like you have to have the teams, the operations, the processes, everything needs to be like booked to a T. And in order to first reach that first 7 figures, and when you hit the second 7 figures and so on into 8 figures, everything is different. I think the craziest thing that I would actually say would be the most challenging thing during that process, I think, is companies that are scaling their first 6 figures to 7 figures. That's probably the most challenging point ever on that regard. But when we went into this other mastermind, basically they turned around, they said, restructure your offer to XYZ, find something that makes the most sense that can be more consumable. And it was like light bulb, like we're like podcasts, like we're like, what's something that's consistent that people can do weekly? Ta-da! It's like a no-brainer, right? So we hadn't really thought about it because we're still in like the content marketing and the storytelling aspect at that point. But I said we have to evolve. And it was funny because we were in the mastermind group, and then a group of the entrepreneurs that were in there were so supportive. And this is why I love mastermind. They were so supportive. They said, we'll be your first client in this model. So they stepped in because they knew they believed in us, and they knew we had high quality. We knew we had great customer service because they worked with us on some of the other offers we were doing in production time. And then right before COVID hit, we decided to host a 3-day event, which really launched and propelled that business model. So we went in and pitched an offer from the stage and made over $250,000 in 2 days in sales. And so that point was like a pivotal moment, knowing this is something that people actually want and it makes sense. And it was, just shortly about 5 months before COVID hit. So we enrolled clients to come into this experience. And it's been great because we've actually have a great retention rate still to this day. There's about 88% of clients that have come in since then that still work with us today. And so, wow. We're super grateful for that experience, and we take feedback. Well, the team, adjusts things quickly. They try to stay on top of things. Nobody's ever perfect on anything, especially in a service-based industry. But, we take the time to take the feedback, adjust things accordingly. Like, you have to stay innovative as well. And so that was a really good push, but we were also going into COVID. But gratefully during COVID, we had a pretty not stagnant, but a very consistent year. But what was unique about it is we actually were coming in to help people shift and pivot online with podcasting during that time, because people were frantically looking for solutions that they could do recording from their home offices. So our solution for our content marketing for podcasts made sense. Some of them might have not made sense. People might have not had budgets or were closing the doors for brick and mortars and they were losing out on opportunities. But those that had a larger mindset or had a budget set aside, they're like, I'm going to do this and push forward because we don't know how long we're going to be in lockdown, right? So that really helped us propel that first challenge out of the gate coming into COVID. So very unique on that, but we had to build our team very fast.
Check out this great book, Cash Follows the Leader. It's all about uninterrupted daily growth with high cash value life insurance. We unpack what people need to know about how you can grow and store and warehouse your wealth in a totally different way than what we've been trained to do. Go ahead and download a free copy by going to coachcanfield.com/cash follows and get a copy right to your inbox right now.
You were able to get some appropriate advice and some suggestions to get you thinking differently. Oh, yes, we might need to pivot, and let's go ahead and do that. Something that's like regular consumable content effectively is, rather than, because the challenge is often, how do we get content out of people? And then there's all these extra hurdles about now turning that content into something, but it's also like, how do we just get them to get us the content? Versus over here, there's people that are producing it willingly all the time on a regular basis. They just want to do that part. They don't want to do all the other stuff. And maybe that's where our niche can be. But just like the timing of knowing, 6 months or so before COVID really started to have a tremendous impact. You were able to make that pivot, get some, again, someone having some faith in you that you'd already been working with to say, yeah, we're going to come with you on the ride. We're going to get going. having some early success. The fact that you were able to have that 3-day kind of event and be able to make that happen before lockdowns, I mean, that alone really would have helped, get some of that amplification effect taking place. So just really, really incredible how so many of those things started to come in alignment for you. Now, with COVID coming into play and some of the entrepreneurs you're serving, you talked about people no longer being able to go to their brick and mortar building, them having to shift their businesses. You've made the shift early to some degree, already in a highly, virtual oriented technology space to a large degree, but almost being able to now use COVID as a starting block for some of those people to help them create a new path so they could still be mission functional in growing a business. I think that's very interesting. So how was it that you were able to start to see that trend that you could help them say, look, you can't go to your office anymore. Why don't we get some content in place and we'll help you, move the dial forward?
That's a great question. So the way that we saw it too was being able to create an experience and an enticing offer that made sense virtually. So when a lot of people I'm very much an action taker. I'm very much, won't go into my deep story, but there's a lot of things that happen in my life that make me a very resilient person. First off, I have about 14 years sober on that regard, and we'll go into the deep story. But the things that I went through going in my sobriety journey really like pale in comparison to scaling a company. Like there was so many trials and tribulations in the personal life story that, as an entrepreneur, made me dig my heels in deeper. You get your back up against the wall when there's challenging situations like COVID and things like that. And I'm that type of person that will pivot rather quickly, but ask for help. I think a lot of people don't tend to ask for help. They want to do it themselves, or maybe they have an ego. It's really about letting the ego go on a lot of sides. Because I had a decent ego there when I first joined my first mastermind, especially when we had that one offer and they were like, "Oh, we just made $85,000 in the first month." We're like, "Oh, this is easy," right? You're like, "Oh," because I joined a mastermind, I put together an irresistible offer and I sold it in the first 30 days. That doesn't always happen like 24/7. Didn't mean that the next month was the same on that journey. But what I noticed with COVID is what we did is I actually was talking to a lot of our clients. Some of them had large influence already. Some of them did not. And I actually reached out to a good handful of them and we put together basically what we called the Shift series. And we came in and did a 3-day virtual event series with our clients that had influence that also wanted to help in very specific industries. There was healthcare, hospitality, business owners. It was attracting brick and mortar businesses. So right away, within the first 6 weeks of lockdown, we literally formulated this event. We had over 500 people sign up in the matter of a few weeks. And we did a bunch of different trainings and had them come in as speakers to, one, promote the event that led into a specific opportunity to work with us through the year, built that power partner relationship with our clients. And then we reduced some of the rates for our current clients to give back to them during a hardship time. Obviously, we didn't want to come in and do things for free, but we understood the complexity of what was going on and revenue going down. So we wanted to talk to them and strategize about how we can get revenue up virtually. And so that was a great success as well within like the 6 weeks of it basically locked down. And so we're like, okay, what makes sense? And so we just started giving more value, reducing our costs at that point in time. And then reaching out to our clients also to say, like, how else can we help you too? Like, who can we introduce you to? And that really, it's something that just comes naturally to me. Normally, like through life, I just want to open doors for people because they call me the connector. My nickname's the connector behind the scenes. So like when I understand what a company does or a business does, or I hear something in a conversation, I literally will be like, oh, you should connect with Richard, right? Like this, he can help you with this. It's just like a automatic thing for me. So I started just doing that with everybody in our network. I was just like, how can I help you? Like, how can we open the doors during this time? So I just started to communicate more with people, even though people were retracting and closing up and sleeping in. And like, there's like, I'm depressed, I was like up, like walking outside. I was like, okay, what can I do to help? And so that really just evolved from that point to allow us to continue to scale. But at that point, we were bringing in a lot of lead generation to help, and we had to scale our teams. And that's where we were like, okay, we need more people on board. So we were helping supply jobs during COVID and supplying services during COVID and shifting our offers and things like that. And I think the biggest challenge during that time was like when you see things that shift and you need team members to come in, it's like, oh, how are we going to get the team members trained fast enough to help all these people that just came in from this 500-person event? You know, it was a good challenge to have, right? But at the same time, you're like, yes, like they say that, but one of my mentors, she's always like, you say yes to success. And I'm like, so I took that for a while, but then later on in life, I was like, there's certain things that you just say no to at this point. I was like, as a business owner, I was like, no, that doesn't serve me. That doesn't serve like where I'm going with my life. But that was in my head at that point. It was like, say yes to success. I was like, how can we help? How can we add things? And some things started getting a little bit more customized. And that got to be very challenging because people were like, do you do this and this? And so we're like, when we started to build the systems and the processes and the offers, then everybody's coming in like, can you help with this? Can you do this? Because all of a sudden everybody's like coming online. So it became a little bit overwhelming for the team. And then we had to bring in more team members to help train to bring the flux of people we were helping during COVID. So it was a very interesting time on different matters, I guess you would say.
And I mean, to give people perspective, you know, what's the time frame that you realized you really needed to ramp up? I mean, obviously that event, 500 people, a lot of people wanting activity, like that's an immediate signal that you need to do it. But sounds like you had to, you know, almost like double the size of your organization in the matter of a few weeks somewhat in order to get people to train. And that's finding people, hiring people, then beginning to train people. It's like there's a lot in there. It sounds like 3 steps, but it's not. It's like 10,000 steps.
True. Very much like 10,000. It felt like 10 million steps on that part. So we were grateful for that opportunity to have this shift come in and help people during that time and put together this, you know, irresistible offer that made sense to help them pivot and market online. But yeah, we literally had to hire like 20 people in the matter of like a week. And, you know, when you're trying to vet through individuals through different platforms, if you're using something like Indeed.com for like applications, processes like that, at that point in time, it wasn't like something that was super knowledgeable for always coming on like a Zoom interview or anything like that, because people still thought they were going to go back to work, right? Like they're like, oh, this is just temporary. So I think a lot of the positioning that we were putting out there was, we can start out with this as like a temporary part-time position, paid trial period to see how you work with the team. Because the way that we do our business with our either team employees or contractors or staff, everybody comes in on a paid trial period. We want to know how they perform, how they communicate with the team, you know, take a different personality test, whatever that looks like. Like we want to know how efficient they are in specific ways. So we always like obviously offer a paid trial to go through that. So at that point, we're like, we kind of just need to hire, right? Like we'll do a paid trial for like 20 people. So we're like, okay, this is a contract position. We can unbind this contract at any point in this contract that we put in there. So we had to literally test people based on their portfolios, their visuals. This was a lot of the creative sides, right? Like portfolios for video editing, copywriting, graphic design, things like that. So we're coming in like, okay, because at the same point, you've got your project managers. So the project managers are managing the entire hub under there. So you've got roles for copywriter, graphic designer, Reels editor, video editor, audio podcast finesse person, YouTube SEO person, social media person. Like there's so many different people that like that account manager is managing under one hub. So you can imagine how it literally was like, okay, like we have to make sure that they're really good at what they do. They can respond quick enough into our system. Like, are they available? Like coming in as a contractor? Are they open to, you know, hitting a certain amount of goals that we have and being careful on a contractor level? And so it was very interesting to watch, but it was like, we were doing the tests, but we're like, okay. And then we had to allow our team leaders in each department to take the lead and train too in those departments. You know, here's our main video editor, John, who creates the templates for a new video editor, and he goes through the process, gives them all the templates for Adobe Premiere, Adobe motion graphics, templates, whatever that looks like, the brand guidelines. Here's all the assets that are going to go into animated, places, whatever. So it's like he had to be taken away. Our main people, each department had to be taken away to train. And so then it slows down on their workload too. So it got to be very interesting to say like, okay, like who else do it? So now we've got different, so then we created project floor managers. Those people turn around and one of my mentors, he taught us this whole system because he has an agency that generates over 25 million a year annually. And so we put those same systems into place that he taught us. So we're able to scale rapidly with those systems. But it was very interesting to be like, oh, okay. Yeah, of course it had a lot. Well, it was a lot of challenges and, things throughout the way, but I was like, as long as people just stayed on top of it, or people that were like driven, that like wanted to show up, that were passionate about the skill that they provided, they were great for the team. Like they were like, I love stability. I love what I do. I can hit deadlines. I'm a good person. I can communicate and they're kind. And those are really the factors that we're looking for. And then those people basically have been with us for years. I think the majority of our team has been with us for years on that regard. So great.
That's incredible. I love it. Well, we're going to hear more about the incredible team and the work that you're doing when we come back after this important break.
In the year 2009, my life completely and totally changed. Something momentous and incredible happened to me. That thing was this incredible book, Becoming Your Own Banker. It was written by my mentor, an amazing friend of mine, R. Nelson Nash. It completely revolutionized and changed my entire life. You can learn all about it by registering for a free on-demand webinar at learnibc.com. Take the initiative, you won't regret it.
We are back here with Tamara. We're talking about, of course, the incredible journey of growing her agency, all the amazing things that transpired during COVID, the pivot, the change, the rapid need to grow a team with people who thought that they might go back to their old jobs and then found out they couldn't, training everyone. There's just so many pieces under the sun here. And so as you've drastically grown the size of your organization, you're finding ways to help support your existing clients and also bring on new ones. There's so many challenges in that process, but there's also so many opportunities. You really also created opportunities for your existing clientele by saying, "Hey, look, how can we help support you? Who can we introduce you to?" One of the things I'm curious about is, how did you start to see during that time frame, COVID, and now in a very, we're well past it now in a post-COVID world. What have you start to see the changes around the types of tools and elements that you're using as a team in an organization? Because I'd imagine those have shifted and changed, somewhat haphazardly over the last number of years with the advances of some of the technology that we use presently.
That's a great question. So like I mentioned in the previous session that we were talking, like I'm that person that takes action fairly fast with things that come out because I want to learn and understand it and not be fearful of anything that's coming in to the world, especially when we're talking about like AI, let's say. Like AI, like the day it came out was November 30th, a couple of years ago. Basically, ChatGPT, the day it came out, I signed up for it and I had the team sign up for it. I was like, everybody go in there and play. Like everybody, like that was the thing. I was like, I was like, just go in there and see what you can do. With it, I was like, at the time I didn't know what quite was going on, and I think nobody did. And so we're like, well, we're gonna do the research on not just ChatGPT, but some other different ones as well, and see what's going on. And of course, that was the main tool that we're like, well, we have to utilize this for efficiency or process and team right off the bat. So it was one of those things where now, of course, with AI, like, there's things that can seem more realistic and more humanized and things like that. At that point, it seemed like a lot of like, I don't know, fluff and emojis and, stuff like that. Or like, I was like, what we would call sounds like AI, right? And some stuff still sounds like AI. I can read a post and be like, that was AI generated. Like, some people like that stuff. That's fine. But I think the efficiency factor was each time something came out to evolve with innovated with AI, we've always jumped on the bandwagon, right? So we wanted to make sure that we tested different tools for like video caption editing, like resources like efficiency. How fast can this tool spit out clips? At the same time, we would go back and forth with it though, because some of the quality of the clips or some of the timestamps that they've picked weren't like the juicy bullet point hooks or like the right types of hooks, like for the micro content, the reels, shorts, stuff like that. And then the design element on some of those caption tools, like they just weren't very elegant or pretty. They've not everyone wants to be pretty, but I was like, if you want something to like pop and like look cool and fascinating, you wanted to make sure that you had tools. So we would test them out, and I'm like, the quality doesn't look that good. Yeah, they can spit out stuff, but like, we're going to test different ones. So we found tools over the time that can create captions that look better than other ones, but there's also the element of like editing and like sometimes if you want B-roll added in or something creative or some sort of animation to make it poppy or emojis or things like that make it more engaging. So we had to test these tools, see which ones had the elements that were poppy, back when, Hermosi style reels came out, right? Like everyone's like, I have to have reels like Hermosi. So of course all the clients were coming in like, I have to have Hermosi style reels. So we're like, of course, so it's like being able to innovate and be like, well, which tools can do this? Or is this still something that has to be a little bit more personalized, right? Like coming in on editing. I love the fact of AI that you can utilize AI to take a transcription and, utilize show notes and timestamps for YouTube and stuff like that. But you have the ability to ask it very specific things. And I think people didn't know about that in the beginning. It's like, when we were testing it, we're like, wow, if you literally ask it like a very specific question and you're like, and this, like, please provide a strong YouTube optimized title around this topic. And please, give us certain, keywords that make sense for this YouTube channel, like being super specific with it though, allowing it to spit out this content topic ideas or transcribing your and then having the human touch by the copywriters going in to pay attention to be like, okay, if it also took a transcription and said, here's 10 real topic ideals and hooks from this, and here's the timestamps to cut. That's great. So, but you still had to have the human come in and be like, that one's not very strong. It's not to the point. Like the AI thinks it is, but we come in and be like, okay, well, you still need a human touch to go in and be like, yes, I believe that's strong. No, I think there's other ones that come in. So the copywriters would still go in and still select other timestamps that made most sense. So I think AI is amazing, and it's great to be able to intertwine it into a service. Like we need it at this point to be efficient with team, but it's having that human touch, like overseeing it, right? So like you could have, we've had ideas where we're like, let's have AI generate ideas for a podcast show graphic, right? So it will generate a very different style than our graphic designers will. But what's unique about it would be like, I like this and I like this, but I think it could, be better on something. And there's at points where AI just cannot quite take your feedback to alter that podcast graphic. So then we're passing it off to the designer. We say, hey, this is the design element, the feel, the color tones, the branding that really pops for the show. Can you recreate this to be a more bold font, like something that stands out more? Take these color tones, but this element doesn't work for this brand. Can you help do so? It's helping the design team also create some other options as well. So there's lots of different templates for like poppy thumbnails for YouTube and things like that. But you can utilize AI to help start the process.
It reduces the amount of time of the back and forth between, the client doesn't like this, they don't like that, and so there's an email transition there. There's all those lost steps where meanwhile the person just wants to keep moving forward, and you want to be able to get things in motion. So it's really a speed of implementation tool for your business in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And that's really how AI has helped in a lot of regards. So in the right of utilizing it for transcription, for copy, bullet points, keywords, title, market research, different elements, we still have a person overseeing each department depending on which type of tool it is. That's really important to us because we don't want to send something where somebody goes, that sounds like AI, because there are clients that are like, I don't want to sound like AI. And I was like, of course you don't. I was like, I want you to sound like yourself on that regard. So So it's very important to just have someone oversee that. But as it evolves and AI evolves, of course, there's different platforms that spit out better copy at this point. But there's still like telling it the tone or changing things. I can still read it and understand that it's still AI and different things. I'm like, please sound like me. I'm like, still doesn't sound like me. But it's just the efficiency factor, and then just having people oversee, because it minimizes the time also for, those copywriters that are picking profound timestamps as well. If it's already spitting out some profound clips and ideas that sparks even more interest of them, then they're like, okay, that's a great one. Now I'm just going to write the copy for this reel, right? This hook. Now I'm just going to write the copy for this. They can use AI to write that copy, but we tend to have them come in and edit it because we still want it to perfect the brand, in that regard. So hopefully that makes.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I mean, what I am seeing and I'm hearing, and I'm hoping that, for our viewers, if they're on the fence or maybe they're starting to use it, they're starting to see some use cases as well as to how they can implement that in their own practice. So whatever it is that you're doing, again, you're talking very much on the marketing side and content specifically. And to this day and age, content is the primary form that most people are doing marketing to some degree. So how can you create little steps of time-saving mechanics along the journey of getting a content from idea or conception to the reality where it's out into the marketplace, whether it's blog related, text related, video related, image related. It's not saying don't rely on AI to get you a final product. Allow AI to help you iterate to get to a final product faster.
Exactly. Yeah, I use AI daily. I'm literally like asking, like, I'll open up even like Copilot app on my phone. I'm just like asking a question. I'm like, okay, I just got my answer. It's like, obviously sometimes you want to back the information that it's providing for you on that regard, but it's all about the efficiency factor. Once you step in and people can start utilizing it in their life or their business, even like their finances and others, they can ask questions for things like that. I tend to ask just random questions, even if it's on like law or, finances or just questions. I'm like, I'm going to ask something quite faster than, writing my CPA or something like something that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, obviously I can write them too, but if there is somebody that can help, or a system or an AI bot or something that can help anything, I mean, just utilize it, like just start leveraging it too. Cause I know there's still people are still fearful of it, or like, oh no, it'll never be like a human. But there's so many different things out there, and AI can be used for good, because there are obviously situations where people are using AI for not so good. And so our team is utilizing it for good purposes on the podcast realm of that. So yeah, it's just like you can be fearful of something, but if you don't try it or test it or give it a shot, there's a lot of different things that can.
Now, what would be, some of the most, I guess, favorite or most utilized tools that yourself using personally, or maybe your team uses that you would encourage people to give a try or a test out? Not so much as like not just the things that you found like, hey, we used to use ABC tool and now we've transitioned to CDF tool because it adds some different flavor. So is there, because you've iterated the things that you're trying, you've tried lots of different ones. As they come out, you're testing. So I'm curious, are you seeing the pace of tools is changing, but are you seeing the use case sufficiently enough adjusting for you guys to say, you know what, this mousetrap is better than the one that we've been using for the last 2 years?
That's a great question. So there's so many that we've tested. I can't even list them all anymore. Obviously, we started with ChatGPT. Honestly, we don't really use ChatGPT like too much anymore. Myself, I actually use Copilot. In that realm, it's just easy to app. So we started with one like that, and then we went into video and some other ones, Descript. There's just so many different ones that keep coming out. So we'll sign up for some trials to see if they have anything that's different and useful. But what we really started to go back to, there's one that like the editors can use. Like, I don't even know all the lingo on some of this stuff, but they're like, we use the waveform. And I'm like, what is that? They've like, they've been innovative, and they're like, you should do this. And so we're like, okay. So like they're coming to us and they're being the innovative ones, bringing ideas to the table, because we're constantly asking the team like for their ideas and things like that, because, as a founder, I don't want to be jumping into like just, I'm cool to know all the information, but I don't need to be like, if you guys believe this is a better tool, we'll get that software tool for you. Like this, you just tell us at this point. That's kind of how it's evolved over the time. So they're like, Tamara, we believe this is better for this. So we're like, okay, great. Let's try that. And so that's really how it's kind of evolved, because we're constantly touching base with the team every single month, asking them to bring ideas. What have they seen that may need some updated opportunities, different things like that. Like we're open to like switching up different caption styles, different color tones that might pop. And that's just on the creative like side of that side. But they might, of course, we'll look into like analytics, like what keywords are actually working on your YouTube channels. Like, they'll let us know what's going on and what's not every 30 days, basically. But I'm always open to testing new tools and pivoting where they make sense. So at this point, they've got a long laundry list over there of tools that they're like, can we test? I'm like, go for it. On that regard. So hopefully that answers a little bit of the question there, because I haven't physically used them myself.
No, fantastic. And when we come back after this quick break, we're going to learn more about the importance of developing an AI strategy for your business.
What is this incredible thing called the Kolbe A Index I keep hearing about? I'm a certified Kolbe consultant, and I can't wait for you to discover what your natural instincts are. It works incredible for teams, for business owners, in families, with our kids. The more you can develop and understand your knowledge of how you go and get things done in the world and how that happens with the people around you, everything can get so much better. Take the initiative. Learn more about how this might show up in your life. As a certified coach, I'm happy to sit with you and help you understand the depth of your own superpowers. Get the process started by downloading my free guide at coachcanfield.com.
Growing an incredible organization, empowering your team to be able to implement using modern technology, the power of AI at your fingertips, but not just yours, the fingertips of everyone that's working for you. So just imagine for a moment, you had an organization that empowered people to do the same thing. Now, you've gone ahead and done that with your company to an extensive degree because you've really fostered the embracing of the modern technology culture at a very early stage. And you're starting to see the impact of that as it starts to spread through. So what would you think and advise for people who are companies today, even the clients that you work with, in the importance of being on the cutting edge, of embracing the potential that AI provides for them in their business?
That's a great question. I think, well, one of the things that we've done is allowing the team to actually embrace AI and bring suggestions to the table. One of the biggest things is, when you want your team to have feedback. You don't want to just have them come in and just be a part of a team and they're just doing tasks, task-oriented things. And we empower our team to go out and do the research, or if they see different things and do tests, we're like totally open for it. Like we'll sign up for different tools if they want to try something. We're open to doing trials on new tools and say, show us what you believe this tool can do, because they're like, oh, I saw this new tool. Can we try it? We're going to empower them and say, yes, let's try it. Let's see if this AI tool is a better, video editing software that has better captions. Maybe it can also add animations. Maybe it can add B-roll. Maybe there's something cool that it can do that these other ones don't. So we always tell our team every week, we're like, please, feel free to share, anything that you think you could bring value more to the table. And they get really excited about it. They're like, oh, Tamara, they talk to the team. They're like, I think we should try this. So just being able to be open to it, and say yes if it makes sense, if it's something that's not going to, something that's going to break the bank or something like that. But, if it's some kind of tool that's coming in that's a good resource, give them the opportunity to try it, be open to seeing and they'll bring it to the table. They'll do the presentation. They'll say, we'll say, well, tell us why you think this is better. Show us the example that you created. And then we can decide as a team if it makes sense to move forward on that. So just being able to do that, empowering your team in general is very important. So we have a remote agency and our team basically is all over the globe, basically. And so what's interesting with that, though, is the fact that they come together as a team. They communicate throughout our our systems and our processes. We primarily connect in Slack, and Slack is a tool where we have where they drop in even their Wednesday wins, right? So we want people to be involved and share great opportunities or things that either the clients have said that they're like very impressed with the team, they're very thankful for the team. It gets the people really jonesed up in there. So you see all of a sudden there's like, 50 different people on there like commenting like, woo, high fives, like boom, boom. It's really cool to like watch that energy and empower them to get ideas too. So like as soon as they get that great feedback as well, of course we'll not all feedback's always the positive side, but we always work as a team to work together to see how we can do better at other things or bring other things to the table too. But it's good to be able to allow them to be their own leader in their own departments. So what I was told from one of my mentors, they said, you as a leader, Tamara, you have to step up and allow each department and each person and each individual become a leader in their own way. So you have your leaders that are in each department that are directing and teaching and training all of the people that are underneath them. So now we have a process that every single person that comes in from the hiring and onboarding system, they automatically get passed off to the project floor manager of that department so that they can go through the proper training, going through templates, things like that, the structure. So it was very interesting a couple of years ago, just being taken out of the onboarding, side of it. Of course, I'll jump in with interviews or a second interview at times, because I want to make sure that, I ask questions too. So the team will ask it, but we've got our entire onboarding team and process that goes through there. And then they pass it off to the right departments for all the training and all the training videos and things like that through the platform that we have to train them. Then have access to the box with all the templates and the videos that go with every single department on that regard and go through that system. So I think it's just important to have a system, have organization within the system, and then have the people that are really strong at that, go through that process. But in the end, it's just empowering everybody on the team to feel like they're important because they are. They are helping you grow and scale your company. And so like when it's more of a positive environment, because I've seen different cultures come in and I literally have heard, horror stories from other companies or even people or colleagues or friends of mine that may not be an entrepreneur, but they work for this company and their culture might be toxic or they're reprimanding or negative or things like that. I was like, I never want to build a company that is like that, these stories coming. So it got me to thinking like, allow them to feel empowered, allow them to feel like they can bring an idea or a tool to the table. It's always about them leading. It's always more than me. It's not just because I'm a founder, but it's always more than me. It's the team that's backing it. So they're all leaders.
Well, and I think it's important that you're identifying all those, the idea of the winning Wednesdays and getting that kind of communication going. And there's a reference point that not every business will understand because a lot of businesses don't operate in a virtual format. You have a very remote-based, global-oriented organization. And so you have people working in almost every time zone on the planet, which has its own logistical challenges. It has some logistical advantages and challenges.
I think it has good advantages. And one of the reasons we did that is because we cater to clients in different time zones. And so what made sense with some of it was the fact because we started getting clients in Australia and the UK and different things like that. Even Colombia. So it was like, well, we started putting on producers that made sense that were, still in a time zone to communicate. They want to communicate within 24 hours. It's very important to be responsive. And then also having team members that oversee the project floor managers, maybe there's head of operations or head of strategy that also are CC'd on the emails as well. So we have basically team members that are over, if the time zones overlap, we want to make sure somebody communicates with them through the day. So we actually CC multiple people from the team so that somebody can be responsive. Obviously things happen, there's events, there's busy times, but that's our flow because we want to make sure that our team and even the team leads know all the communication that's going on between the clients as well, overseeing them. So if they have questions, they see the communication going forward with them. And they can jump in and help answer if there's like a time zone, difference or things like that. And that's really how we've kind of stepped in with that part, because we're like, well, we want to make sure that we respond throughout the day, right? And so that's how we provided that solution. And it's worked pretty well at that point, because people might be, in this time zone and that they can answer in the morning. This person might be in this time zone. They can answer in the afternoon or evening, so that somebody can actually communicate what, questions asked by the client. So that's how we've kind of figured that one out.
Well, and with the aspect of, again, running people who are in so many diverse locations, you talked about just the impact of using Slack as your primary communication tool, and there's something different about trying to keep and maintain a culture, both keep and maintain a culture in an organization when they're spread apart and they're not physically connected. There's a uniqueness to the fact that you're bringing people and onboarding them into that realm right away, versus an organization where maybe they started in an in-person format and then they switch to virtual. There's a much bigger disconnect, I think, that happens there. So, it sounds like your team is really actively helping to cultivate that culture for you. What's some advice that you would give someone who is considering a more virtual setup for their business, or already operating in that format? And how would you recommend that they maintain that connection component that can be more difficult to achieve in a non-physical environment?
That's a great question. So some of the things that I've heard from actually other colleagues that to actually implement on this structure, a lot of people ended up going virtual because of COVID, but everyone was so used to being in person, and then they started understanding. They're like, then people were like, well, now let's bring people back to the office, and a lot of people didn't want to go back to the office. I think it's just about paying attention to those that are able to work virtually. So if people moved from an office space and they went virtual, are they motivated to complete anything that's being thrown at them? Are they communicative in Slack? One of the things that I've seen people do is actually keep a Zoom meeting open that somebody runs every day. So they designate a person from the team to keep that Zoom meeting open. So if it's a communicator, if it's head of operations or head of team or chief of staff or something like that, if they have a Zoom room just open that people can come in and meet throughout the day, or they have certain timelines that everybody just goes in that room. They're they know that this one's open from 9 to 5, PT or whatever. They know that they have that support from the team, and then they can get things resolved right away. That's one thing that I've heard people are doing recently. A lot of people I've heard don't want to go back to the office on that regard, but I think it's about also making sure that you can track individuals and their productivity. So productivity is one of the biggest things in our world, in the content world. So I am grateful that I know every single element of content production, editing, script writing, whatever. I know how long it takes to edit a video. I know how long it takes to export a video. I know when someone's BSing me on any realm in regard to production. So when we first bring people in to do a test project, we state what we think is a reasonable amount of content to produce within their time frame. Right? Is are they working on an entire episode of Reels for one day? Are they working on 3 episodes per day? What is their efficiency? What does their productivity look like? Right? And so there's so many different tools that you can watch and track people to. I was actually talking with a gentleman, I think this a couple of days ago or something, but he was saying how his sister would utilize and make sure that she moves her screen thing so that the time doctor would actually look like she's working. And I was like, there's ways that we can watch things like tools like Time Doctor. So we have our contractors and team, utilize things like Time Doctor. So we can see how long it's taking them. We can see the screenshots of their computer. Are they surfing the net? Are they working? Are they doing things like that? So but the thing is you can actually trust people when you put a certain amount of goals and content or things on them. And we say, we know that it takes this amount of time, depending on your efficiency level on that. So if someone's like, I'm only completing 1 project a day, where these people over here are doing 3 projects a day, right? So we're like, this may not be a fit for this person that's doing 1 project a day or 1 episode a day. or maybe they're just not as efficient or don't have the background as many years of this skill, right? And so it's interesting to see that, but we always want to give people a chance, benefit of the doubt, but we have tools that we can pay attention for their productivity, set specific goals. So as long as they're hitting the goals and they're continuously going and showing up, each day of, coming through, then we build that trust with people and in our team on that regard. If we start to see something right away, we will literally confront and, say, hey, this isn't quite a fit. So like yesterday, we had a conversation with the gentleman who we let go. Unfortunately, the productivity wasn't there. But then we also onboarded 3 new team members. So we released 1 and brought 3 on. So that was our Monday. So it's things like that. So it's like once you bring them in and you incentivize them to continue to be strong with the team, but if you go through and they have different things going on and you give them a few opportunities or attempts on things, we usually will let them know our feedback and before we actually say, I don't believe this is the right fit anymore, but we really appreciate the opportunity for you to work with us. So
amazing.
I think, yeah.
Well, virtual business, global domination, marketing machine that you've built. Absolutely fascinating to share it with us. Thank you so much for being on the program today. Love what you're doing. Love being a client of yours and for what you've done for our podcast, our show. We really appreciate it. And for those of you tuning in, make sure to come back next week as we continue to unpack the incredible journey and stories of the entrepreneurs who are making real waves out in the marketplace. Thanks so much for being with us today.